Hello everyone, my name is Fiona Quirke. I'm a PhD student from NUI Galway and I'm currently in my second year of my PhD. I'm delighted to get this opportunity to present to you today on my PhD project COHESION, Core Outcomes in Neonatal Encephalopathy. The aim of my project is to develop a core outcome set for use in clinical trials and other studies for interventions for the treatment of neonatal encephalopathy. A brief overview of my presentation. In the interest of time, I will talk briefly on my PhD background, core outcome sets, and ways in which my project COHESION will contribute to advancements in core outcome set development. My PhD is funded by the HRB Neptune programme. This is the Neonatal Encephalopathy PhD training network. It funds 5 different PhD projects, all looking at neonatal encephalopathy. Neonatal encephalopathy is a syndrome that can occur in newborn babies in which neurological function is disturbed. The most common subtype of neonatal encephalopathy is hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, where there's a lack of oxygen to the baby at some point during the pregnancy or birth. The most common treatment for this is therapeutic hypothermia, where the baby's temperature is lowered to 33 degrees Celsius for a 72-hour period. The baby also undergoes continuous AEG or EEG monitoring during this time. I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of my steering group for COHESION. This is a multinational, multidisciplinary team, and it reflects the different stakeholders with a keen interest in this area. So there's much research being carried out in neonatal encephalopathy for adjunct treatments to therapeutic hypothermia, but there's a problem with this research. Many core outcome set developers often use the analogy of comparing apples and oranges to describe this problem, but because it's Christmas, I'm going to use the analogy of comparing Brussels sprouts and chocolate. So essentially, when different trials or studies measure different outcomes, it makes it almost impossible to make conclusive recommendations on the effectiveness of a treatment. A well-known example illustrating this is a review looking at interventions for the prevention of preterm birth. In this review, there were 72 different primary outcomes reported in 103 randomized controlled trials. Preterm birth itself was only reported as a primary outcome in less than a quarter of these trials. Similarly, in the Cochrane reviews, there were 29 different primary outcomes reported in 33 different Cochrane reviews. And even the authors noted that primary outcomes were variably defined. So a solution for this is to develop core outcome sets. I'm sure many of you have heard of the term core outcome sets, but for those of you who haven't, core outcome sets are an agreed set of standardised outcomes which should be measured and reported as a minimum in all clinical trials in a specific area of healthcare or health. They allow for consistency across trials, they allow for trials to contribute to systematic reviews, ensure that important outcomes are measured, and ensure that there is a reduced risk of selective reporting of outcomes. For the rest of this presentation, I will look at different ways in which my project will contribute to advancements in core outcome set development. Starting with parent involvement. So like other core outcome sets, we will have parent involvement in deciding important outcomes through participation of parents in interviews, the Delphi survey and consensus meeting. However, in addition, in my project COHESION, there is parent input into designing the methodology of this project. 3 key contributors to this are Eleni Vrenon, Mandy Daly and Paul Ryan. These are 3 parents and members of the Irish Neonatal Health Alliance, which contribute to the Neptune network and my project COHESION. As a side note, coming from a science undergraduate background with no clinical experience, the idea of neonatal encephalopathy was very new to me when I started my PhD. To help with this, I spent some time recently in the Coombe Hospital, as you can see from the picture. So when I spent time in the Coombe, I shadowed healthcare professionals. I spent some time in the neonatal intensive care unit. I got to see neonatal encephalopathy babies being cooled, and I engaged with parents on their experiences. This was very important for me to remind me of the purpose of my research, and also will help me engage with parents on their experiences when I conduct interviews in the future, in the coming months, for my core outcome set. Next, we will look at increasing global representation for COHESION. Many core outcome sets are limited to participants in higher income English-speaking countries, due to different reasons such as ethics, language barriers, costs, feasibility and time. However, in Cohesion, we are going to conduct interviews with parents in 2 high-income countries and 2 low to middle-income countries. The high-income countries being Ireland and Australia, and the low to middle-income countries being Kenya and Indonesia. And all interviews will be carried out in the local language of these locations. And lastly, looking at the Delphi survey. So the Delphi survey or Delphi method is often used in core outcome set development to achieve consensus from different stakeholders on the importance of outcomes through different rounds of a questionnaire. Feedback is given at the end of each round, and participants are informed for rating outcomes in the next round. However, there are a number of shortfalls noted in this approach, including attrition after round 1 and dropout after the first round, and the length of time for the entire process. In Cohesion, we will adopt a real-time Delphi approach. Essentially, when participants rate an outcome, feedback in terms of rating and consensus levels will be available in real time. Participants can revisit and re-rate outcomes as many times as they wish during a specific time period. On a final note, I'm hoping to publish some of my work in the coming months, but I will need your help to disseminate and to spread the word about Cohesion to achieve these goals. So please follow me on Twitter. You can all take photos of this slide. And I will need your help to get Cohesion out to as many relevant stakeholders as possible. Thank you.